And it's Ken Kraetzer for Vets Media and our wrap-up edition of the Army football huddle. The Black Knights finished 12-2 on the year and finished on a very positive note with a 27-6 win over Louisiana Tech in the Independence Bowl down in Shreveport, Louisiana. So with me today, we've got Richard Miller. Richard in the warmth of South Florida.
Hi, Ken. Great to be here. Fantastic season for me. A season to remember, and a great way to cap it off with a bowl victory.
Yeah, and what's the temperature down in Palm Beach today or West Palm?
The temp my let's
You
see
don't you, you don't worry
the
about it. I bet it's about 40 degrees warm. We actually got a heat spell here. I think it hit 35 degrees. And we've got Chuck
64
Donnie.
64 actually
What?
64
64.
64
Hey,
64.
grab a sweater. Okay, Chuck Donegan, Long Island. Chuck, how are you?
I'm good, Ken. How about you? Happy New Year, by the way.
Thank you. You too. And from the Beat Navy studio in Huntsville, Alabama, where I heard they had some snow. Um, we've got from the class of '87, Colonel Sam Houston. Colonel, how are you?
I'm good, Ken, and Happy New Year, everybody. Yeah, we had a Snowmageddon event here yesterday, but I think everyone survived. The sun's out and the snow is melting, so I think we'll be good.
That's good. How much snow did you actually get? A couple inches?
It's about somewhere between 4 and 5 inches.
That's a lot. Yeah, we haven't had anything like that up here. But we had really cold weather. I got to tell you, Sam, I got to a place at West Point I didn't even know existed on Thursday. Redoubt 4,
Yep.
which is about 1,000 feet above the post. It's behind the PX and up a couple of roads and trails. And and they had a 21 gun salute for President Carter there at 12 noon on Thursday. And
Yep.
the wind must have been blowing 50 miles an hour across the top of this peak. And I took my gloves off to do the video of this ceremony, which was about 7 or 8 minutes. And gosh, my hands were almost frostbitten from that.
Oh
But have you
man.
ever been there?
Many times, when you do land navigation training at the academy, you get familiar with all kinds of locations all over the post. And Redoubt 4 is always one of those places that has one of the points you have to find on the map, in order to pass your course.
Okay, well, it's nice job by I guess that was a garrison squad. They had three, what'd you call it, a howitzers that do the ceremonial salutes.
Yeah, yeah. If it was cannons that they fired, then yeah.
Yeah, there were cannons, like small field artillery pieces, I would say, and then they had a bugler perform taps. And we have some video up on my Twitter and YouTube pages. But it was interesting to get there. I mean, sometimes you have to be a little resourceful. I got there with 1 minute to spare. They had moved the ceremony from Trophy Point, um, and uh, and I didn't get that note. So anyway, it's good to be there. Another spot at West Point discovered. Okay,
Right.
well. Sam, you were with me down in Shreveport. Army came along with a strong win, 27-6. Bryson Daly had another big day. What was your impression of of the the bowl game, the Independence Bowl?
First, I'd just say that hats off to Louisiana Tech. They they were not bowl eligible, and Marshall, of course, was supposed to be the bowl opponent. Marshall being the Sun Belt Conference champion, 10-3 during the season. It looked like it was going to be a really good matchup, and then, of course, the transfer portal animal struck, and Marshall's coach didn't have his contract renewed, and they just literally, their team fell apart, and they weren't able to field a team for the Independence Bowl. Louisiana Tech stepped into the void on very short notice, and even though they had a few players out from transfer portal as well, what was expected to be an absolute blowout was a competitive game, and Louisiana Tech did play very spirited from start to finish. They 100% did not lay down at any time during the game and just let Army have their way. And as a matter of fact, in the second half, there were moments of the game where you felt like Army might be letting the game slip out of their hands and allow Louisiana Tech to actually get into the game. Whether it be a fumble that gave Louisiana Tech the ball or a missed field goal by Granati that just seemed to keep it from getting to the heights of a blowout that we had been expecting. The bowl game itself was it was a good event. There was really bad weather the whole day on Saturday leading up to the game. Bad
Oh
thunderstorms,
yeah.
torrential rain, and it looked to me as though that weather kept some of the expected crowd away from the game. So, unfortunately, the stadium was not as full as I think that they were expecting, especially given the fact that Louisiana Tech is from Ruston, which is only 60 miles
An
away.
hour away, yeah.
But it was still a good game for folks watching. It was a good way to see the Army team be able to capstone another historic moment for the team, which is their 12th victory of the season. The crowd really was pretty sedate. I think that it was just a collective release, a sigh of thankfully the season is now over. And at the end, it seemed like it was more a celebration of the players' families and the coaches' families, and most everyone else had left. And the players were able to leave with their parents, I think, the next morning and go home finally for the holidays and have their late Christmas and everything else. The game itself, it started out the first half. I was very pleased with a lot of the things I saw Army doing. As a matter of fact, it was a lot of things that I could not for the life of me understand why they were not doing during the Army Navy game. And that was the lion's share of Army's offensive plays during the first half of the game were under center triple option. And they were distributing the ball pretty well. And they were getting the ball in space on the perimeter. Hayden Reed took over for Kanye Udo, and as I expected, he ran the ball extremely well. Had his first 100-yard game since he racked up 100 versus UTSA the previous season, and he had a touchdown. Actually, he did not have a touchdown. I'm thinking of the Army Navy game. Right? Or did he have a touchdown? I'm already.
Bryson Daly had 3 touchdowns.
That's right.
And Hayden Reed had 1.
Hayden Reed had a touchdown.
He had the second first quarter touchdown, 12
yards. So, but then in the second half, for whatever reason, Army started to drift away from the under center triple option and started running the shotgun quarterback heavy run formation that they were doing against Navy, which is kind of a one-dimensional or less than one-dimensional offense. And their offense just seemed to sputter. So when you were expecting Army to just keep dominating and complete the destruction of Louisiana Tech, they seemed to sputter when they should have been firing on all cylinders. And I'm not sure what I chalked that up to, but in the end, it was a good victory. It was a dominant victory. There's no doubt about it. The defense certainly had their way with Louisiana Tech. And but in the end, I don't know. To me, it was just a less than satisfying win. Really was hoping that they would go out with a little bit more of a dominating victory over Louisiana Tech than what they were able to score. And it was a little disappointing to see some of the little mistakes they were making in the second half, especially on offense and special teams. Because let's also remember that they kicked the ball out of bounds twice on kickoffs. And given the fact that they had kicked the ball out of bounds on the opening kickoff against Navy, it made you start. I mean, actually, people in the crowd were starting to ask, is there something wrong with the place kicker? And
well, that was Greg Granati doing the kickoffs, wasn't it? Or did they put the other kicker in?
No, no, it was Granati because the original, the kicker who started the season as doing the kickoffs hurt himself early in the season, and
Yeah,
so Granati was doing the kickoffs all season long. So,
yeah.
but for some reason, in the Navy game and in the bowl game, he was kicking the ball out of bounds on kickoffs, which that's a big penalty. It gives the other team favorable field position just to start off the bat, and you don't want to surrender that type of field position on something that can be prevented. But other than that, historic season again. They got over 300 yards rushing, which was great. Bryson Daly is now the all-time FBS quarterback touchdown rushing touchdown leader. And
Over the Navy quarterback, Keenan Reynolds.
yes, he broke Keenan Reynolds'
How good
record.
was that? I mean, I've met Keenan; he's a good guy, but boy, is he a tough guy. I did an
Yeah,
interview with him once, and boy, he never smiled once.
yeah. Well, I mean, Keenan Reynolds was like we've had this discussion on the huddle. I honestly thought that Keenan Reynolds deserved the Heisman Trophy his first year, even though he was a squid. But if you go back and look at the body of work of Keenan Reynolds and overlay it with Bryson Daly, you'll find that Keenan Reynolds actually scored a whole boatload of touchdowns in his 4 years at Navy. Way
I thought it
more
was
than
what, 29?
wait. Well, he scored 31 his first year, but what I'm saying is that previous years he was scored 20 touchdowns and more per season. So, I think Army's all-time TD leader is still Trent Steelman. I think it's like 45 TDs. Keenan Reynolds alone accounted for, I don't know, 70 touchdowns in his career. So,
Yeah,
and
it's
then
tremendous
if you
career.
also look at the career touchdown leaders for quarterbacks, rushing TDs, look at the top 10 all-time quarterback TD leaders, and you'll find that Navy has, I think, three or four players on that list. Will Worth, Keenan Reynolds. There's some other guy that I'm forgetting his name. It'll come to me in about an hour when we're done. But
Me too.
Navy has really put a lot of people on this career quarterback touchdown list. So it's nice to see Bryson Daly hold the all-time record now for a
Yeah.
single season. But
Well,
it makes you wonder what Bryson Daly could have done if the previous season he had been allowed to run the same offense. He would have had a similar season, and he would have scored a similar number of touchdowns.
yeah, that's we've had that talk with Coach Monk on a few times about that move. I think that's one of the few things in Coach Monken's career that he really regrets having
Yeah.
overreacted to the change in the blocking rules and changed what had been fundamentally working. And especially when he still had Jacoby Buchanan and Tyson Riley to work as fullbacks, but they did win their last four and got them started on it this year. Hey,
Yeah.
Sam, I just want to mention, and recognize the people at the Independence Bowl. They had a good press conference. Talked to both teams, talked to Bryson Daly and Max DiDomenico and the coach, and met their quarterback and coach. And then they did a nice kind of Mardi Gras parade. Started through the retail. They have a retail outlet area, and went through what turned out to be kind of a restaurant district and park. And then they did a pep rally, battle of the bands, and both teams did well. I mean, both the West Point Cadet Spirit Band and their rabble rousers, and then Louisiana Tech mustered over 100 of their musicians and all their cheerleaders and dance teams. So, and for those kids, that's a great time, and they'll remember being at a bowl game and performing, and then yeah, during the day of the game, it poured rain, from 8 till 4. But what happened was it stopped raining,
Mhm.
and a rainbow came out. And I went into the stadium. It's pouring rain at about 4 o'clock, and then getting settled. All of a sudden, the sun came out, and there's this big rainbow,
Giant rainbow.
and everybody saw it. And I put it out on Twitter, and everybody kind of commented. And then everything proceeded pretty normally. They were able to get all the pregame, the West Point Alumni Association, which I saw you at, had their event, and
Yeah.
the cheerleader and dance team were, and rabble rousers and the spirit band perform. We saw the superintendent, and they were able to do all the traditional pomp that you have at bowl games. The Louisiana Tech band performed, and then the West Point band performed. They brought down I'd say about 35 of their musicians, and did a nice job. So they were able to do everything that they planned, and they just lucked out with the weather accommodating. And then it was kind of a nice evening for football. I guess once you got your seat dried off, were you comfortable in the stands there?
Yeah, I had seats that had chair backs on them, and we took towels with us. So when we
Good
got
idea.
to our seats, we dried our seats off and laid the towels across them. So everything was fine. And the Independence Bowl Stadium, it's a very old stadium, and it has this. I don't know how else to put it. Just I don't want to sound cliche, but it has this very old school construction to it. So
Yeah.
you go in, it's like concrete with aluminum bench seats, and but they have done some minor modifications and upgrades to it, and part of that is to uh, uh, put seat back seats on a lot of the seats on both sides of the ball between the 40-yard lines,
Yeah.
and so we were fortunate to be in those types of seats. So it made it pretty comfortable. And you're not kidding about the rainbow. I mean, we had pulled up and parked. It was still pouring rain, and we were just sitting there in the car. And I kept looking at the weather and saying, well, it's saying that the rain's going to stop in like 15 minutes. Let's just sit in the car. And then next thing you know, it started to brighten up, and I looked to my right. So our car was facing north. So I looked to my right to the east, and I said, hey, look, there's a rainbow. And we got out of the car, and this might have been the most beautiful rainbow I think I've ever seen. It was a double rainbow.
Yeah.
You could see the full thing. It was very photogenic, and tons of people got photos of it. I got a photo and posted it before the game started, and it was just very fortuitous of what was going to be God's sign that everything's going to be fine here, and the Earth's not going to flood, the Independence Bowl is going to be played, and we're not going to get rained on. So
Yeah, it all worked out. It's lucky it would turn out to be a night game, not an afternoon game when it was pouring and awful out. Chuck Donegan, did you get a chance to watch? You have a thought on it?
Yeah, I thought it was a hard-fought game. They definitely pulled off a great victory. Yeah, they, showed their usual guts, gusto, that good stuff. I think it was really a great way to end the season.
Yeah, no, it was a soft landing on the season after the disappointment in the Navy game, but 12-2 is always going to stand out as one of the best seasons ever. And looking a little more, of course, I just lost my place.
Okay.
It was a good effort. It was Bryson's daily last game for West Point, and he ran for 127 yards, 3 touchdowns, and Hayden Reed came in to fill in, 20 carries, 5.7 yards a carry, and got a touchdown. Noah Short carried 5 times. Tyrell Robinson got 4 in his last game. And Carson Smith, Jake Redina, Miles Stewart all contributed. And Bryson was 2 out of 9 passing, and for 65 yards, passes to David Crossan and Casey Reynolds. And on defense, Caleb Fordner, a big day. He had 10 tackles. He'll be back. I got to think he's going to be one of the captains next year. Deshaun Gray had 4. So did Max Domenico, Trey Miller, and Elo Mendoza had 4 and tackled for loss. Um, Justin Weaver had a tackle for loss, as did Fortner and Gray. So Army kept another game where they didn't give up a touchdown, just a couple of field goals. And Nate Woody's defense can be very proud. Jaden Mays had an interception. And Richard, what do you think of the game?
I thought it was a fantastic way to end the season. I also think the running game, the of Bryson Daly and Hayden Reed, really drove the game in Army's direction. They really were able to rely on the top two guys, Daly and Reed, in terms of running the football and also combining for four touchdowns on 47 carries to really control obviously the time of possession on the clock and even during the game. Bryson Daly also chipping in with 65 yards passing, but it was really running the ball, taking it and just running it down Louisiana Tech on the way to a victory to cap off a great way to cap off a fantastic season.
Okay, and in a second, Richard, you can run down some of the bowl games. Want to check that, and and then we'll get to the two big games that were just played this week, and the upcoming national championship. But we'll get a couple of thoughts. Two departures of note from West Point. Kanye Udo, the running back, who had over 1,000 yards for West Point, has star written all over him. Went in the transfer portal, and the last I heard, he was going to Arizona State. What did you think of that move, Colonel?
Yeah, well, so many mixed reviews about the fact that Kanye Udo is departing. He chose to go into the transfer portal, and I've always tried to take a pragmatic view on this, and point out the fact that it was Kanye Udo's right to do that, and any West Point cadet, regardless
Sure.
of whether they play on one of the athletic teams or not, may depart the academy at any time in their first 2 years at the academy and not have any service obligation, not have any requirement to pay back anything. You're not committed to your service obligation until you step into your very first class on the first semester of your Cal, or what we call Cal year, with the junior year. And so it was his right. If it was his decision to leave the academy, then he's certainly entitled to that right. And he's an outstanding football player. Occasionally, he had some ball handling issues during the season. Probably put the ball on the deck a little bit more than Coach Monken would be happy with.
Anytime you put the ball on the deck, Coach Monken's going to be very upset.
Yes, absolutely. And but yes, as far as we know, he's committed to Arizona State, and it appears that he could possibly step into Arizona State and be the heir apparent to Scadaboo, who was their running back, who absolutely had a monster day against Texas in the college football playoff. So, and my understanding is that Scadaboo, just a related topic, is that he actually was an original commit to Army, and then decommitted,
Right.
went to Arizona State. So, this is there is a link there. But I wish Kanye Udo the best, and I really hope to see him excel at Arizona State in his new role, to be able to earn a starting position on the team and be able to demonstrate that he is capable of maybe even taking football to the next level on the pro fields one day. So best to Kanye. But he's going to be missed. But I want to point out that he has a very capable player that will be filling in for him next season, and that is Hayden Reed, who I have been a big fan of for a long time. Simply one of the most team-oriented players on the entire squad, and has selflessly sacrificed himself as a blocking back this entire season. And then when he had the opportunity to tote the rock, as we saw against Louisiana Tech, he delivered an admirable performance, and I'm not surprised at all. But we do wish
Yeah,
success on Udo.
he's a good player, and we absolutely wish Kanye Udo the best at Arizona State, and follow his career there. I guess one of the things that just before we get to the other movement is discussion about changing the transfer portal window so that players would be able to stay on their teams through the bowl games because not just Marshall, but even Louisiana Tech and others were losing players to the transfer portal, even though they had a bowl game. I mean, we've seen a little bit of that with some star players pulling out of bowl games because they wanted to prep for the NFL combine and draft. And so that was, I know Coach Munkin said that and others, and there's some other changes. Although the other side of it is the players are all trying to say, okay, I got to find a new school to start second semester, which may start early in January. What do you think on that one, Colonel?
Something needs to be done with regards to the transfer portal, and there needs to be a better way of regulating the process by which players go through the transfer portal. This past season has been a disaster where the transfer portal is concerned, and it has badly affected the bowl games. And it's an absolute shame that a team like Marshall, with such a proud tradition, was unable to even field a team for their bowl game when they were the conference champion of their conference. And so many other games that you would be watching this year where the team that was on the field for the bowl game was simply not the team that had competed all season long. Tulane is a great example. Tulane lost their starting quarterback, and
we talked to
lost a few other players in the transfer portal, and they went to their bowl game and just got absolutely spanked by Florida. And it was disappointing because we know how good of a team Tulane was during the season. And, I feel bad for Tulane fans and their team and everything else for how badly transfer portal, just taking them as an example, affected them and their ability to deliver a quality performance in the bowl game. And of course, Army almost was left without a team to play in the bowl game, and Army was a conference champion. So, we already said thanks to Louisiana Tech for being able to step into the gap and deliver a capable performance. And even Louisiana Tech had lost players in the transfer portal.
They had over 20 players, and Sam, as I recall, they had a list to invite teams to play in a bowl game who weren't bowl eligible based on the academic average of the players on the roster. And they had to go to team 16 to find Louisiana Tech who would say yes.
Yeah. I think probably the biggest reason, but probably the two biggest reasons behind that were number one, the effect of the transfer portal on the teams that they were trying to invite, and number two, the ability of the team to get their players back on campus to be able to start practicing again and put forth a belief in the ability to put forth a capable effort in a bowl game. I mean, the season was over for these teams that they're having to go back and ask. So, I think it's kind of a miracle that they were able to get anybody to come play in the bowl game on short notice like that.
Lots of credit to Louisiana Tech, their coaches and players for, and all of all the band and all of the support people, the cheerleaders were all there. They had a great time. You can tell, and fortunately, the weather turned out to be a nice evening there. Okay, Richard, let's start talking about some of the other bowl games. But I know where I want to start in a game that was the day before, that was just a couple hundred miles away. Um, the game Navy and Oklahoma, win by Navy that day, and quite they had to kick a field goal at the end to win it. Tell us a little bit about that one. You have that one?
Let's see. Yeah, yes, yes. I do have that one in terms of the scores for those bowl games. Let's get to those scores. Okay. Let's as I'm going through the as I'm going through the no, I'm trying to get to I'm
Yeah.
trying to get
December
I'm trying to
27th, Navy 21,
December.
Oklahoma
Okay,
20.
December 27th. Let's see. Okay, December 27th. Navy defeated Oklahoma 21-20 in the Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl. That day earlier in the DirecTV Holiday Bowl, Washington State lost to number
Let's
21
let's stay on this one a little bit, Richard. Let's not let our miss talking about the Navy win. Quite a nice win for them. They were down 14-0. They came back and scored a touchdown. Alex Tex got an 11-yard run in the second quarter. And then in the third quarter, they tied it up on a 95-yard Blake Horvath run. And then in the fourth quarter, Horvath got a 6-yard run for a touchdown to give them the lead with 4:34 to play. And then Oklahoma scored a touchdown. Well, it looked like they were going to not complete that drive. They had a couple of fourth downs, and they score the touchdown, and then they miss the 2-point conversion, which I remember. I think I was listening to the game on the radio at that point, and I couldn't understand why they didn't go kick the extra point and put it into overtime. What was your thinking about it, Colonel?
I agree. I mean, I had predicted that Navy would win the game in our huddle the previous week. And there's a reason for that. The reason I had predicted Navy to win anyway was because Oklahoma, first off, their regular season record was only 6-6. They had performed very sporadically. Sometimes they performed well. Sometimes they performed absolutely atrocious. So I knew coming into the game that this was not like a Barry Switzer or Lincoln Riley Oklahoma team. This was a 6-6 Oklahoma team that I believe was 13th in the SEC. So the second reason was because Oklahoma had, I think it was 17 starters were out because of the transfer portal. So Oklahoma had literally pieced together a second and third string team to play, including a true freshman playing quarterback, to take on Navy in the Armed Forces Bowl. Now, hats off to Oklahoma for still, bringing a team to the field and playing and being ready. And they still were able to move the ball pretty well against Navy. They committed some stupid penalties during the game, and they had a couple of turnovers that affected the outcome of the game. But the biggest reason Oklahoma was trying to win the game at the very end was that Oklahoma had more passes dropped in that game. They hit some wide open receivers streaking down the field, downfield, just to have the player drop the ball. And it was so frustrating. It had to have been just really heartbreaking for the Oklahoma fans who were at the game. And I heard there was a lot of them there.
Sure, they could drive there.
To keep seeing the Oklahoma receivers dropping these passes when their receivers were wide open. And but in the end, it was a surprise to me when Oklahoma scored that TD late that they went for 2 points. Why didn't they didn't just go for one, just kick an extra point and take it into overtime, which is what I expected them to do.
And Sam, even the play they called, they did a drop back in the pocket pass instead of doing a rollout where you have a chance to either the quarterback to throw if he sees a receiver or to run the ball himself. And he just dropped back, didn't see anybody, and then he got sacked.
Yeah, I see. This is why this compounds the fact that it was so baffling that they went for two. because let's go back on what we were just saying. 17 starters out. You've got a true freshman quarterback playing. You got a true freshman playing quarterback. How much time had these guys actually had the opportunity to practice on special teams 2-point conversions? So the chance of success rate was very slim for them to score a 2-point conversion. Minus them just smash mouthing it up between the tackles and putting my offensive lineman against Navy's defensive front. They literally, I'm sure that they had not had the opportunity to practice very many options for 2-point conversions. And so I can't get into the head of the coach. I don't know what he was thinking. But why in the world they didn't just kick an extra point and take it into overtime? I hear the story of, well, we wanted to win it in the end. I get it, but if you are playing the second and third string players who haven't had that much opportunity to practice these types of plays, then wouldn't it be a better chance of giving your team an opportunity to win to take them into overtime? And where the score basically resets to 0-0, and now it's like, okay, now it's on. We'll play our second game, and that's in overtime. But that's not what they did, and Navy was ready. Hats off to them. They sacked the quarterback. Game was over. And, Blake Horvath had another career day. He's an outstanding quarterback. I've called him.
He ran for 155 yards. 8.6 yards a carry, 2 touchdowns. Well, obviously inflated by the 95-yard run, but when he gets open, an open field, he is really fast.
Yeah, he's I think earlier this season I said the same thing about him, which is he is Malcolm Perry, only he can throw the ball. He has an ability to accelerate to top speed in 1 or 2 steps. So when he makes a cut, he's at top speed within 2 steps. And that's really hard to defend. If he gets into open space and you think you've got an angle on him, you probably don't, because he's faster than you think.
Yeah, Chuck and I saw him against Notre Dame at the Meadowlands, and where they had success was when he did rollouts, and he was quick enough to get by some the corner linebackers for Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And had some big plays. That's about the only thing they could do successfully against Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Hey, gotta give a shout out.
My only criticism of Blake Horvath is that he has another year to play. So
I thought you were going to say that. Yeah, I want to get to that in a second. I want to kudos to Michael Hawkins Jr., the Oklahoma quarterback. He was 28 of 43, 247 yards and 2 touchdowns. And he ran for 61 yards. For a freshman, he's got a future, played well. Let's just go quickly down the other bowl games, and we'll save the 2 games this week for last. Richard, go ahead.
Okay. As we continue on here, let's see. Now I lost my place. On Wednesday, number 24 California, number 24 UNLV defeated California 24-13 in the Art of Sport LA Bowl. James Madison 27.
That's right. Just the scores today, Richard.
Okay. James Madison defeated Western Kentucky 27-17. Georgia Southern lost to Sam Houston 31-26. Also, you have, number 12 Clemson and number 5 Texas 38-24. Texas won that game. Number 6 Penn State 38-10 over SMU. Also, you have Florida finishing their season off with a win 33-8 over Tulane. Also, there was also South Alabama defeated Western Michigan 30-23. A little bit later on, UTSA defeated Coastal Carolina 44-15. Double overtime, 28-20. Northern Illinois over Fresno State. South Florida in a 5 overtime thriller, 41-39 over San Jose State. Pitt and Toledo went 6 overtimes, 48-46. Toledo wins that game. Kansas State 44-41 over Rutgers. Arkansas State 38-31 over Bowling Green. Let's see. Also, you have Vanderbilt 35-27 over Georgia Tech. Arkansas 39-26 over Texas Tech. USC and Texas A&M 35-31. USC wins that game. Iowa State 42-41 over Miami. BYU number 17 defeating Colorado 36-14. You have UConn defeating North Carolina 27-14. Nebraska 20-15 over Boston College. TCU over Louisiana 34-3. Miami of Ohio 43-17 over Colorado State. East Carolina 26-21 over NC State. Number 19 Missouri 27-24 over Iowa. Penn State 31-14 over Boise State. Michigan defeated at Alabama 19-13. South Carolina losing to Illinois 21-17. Louisville 35-34 over Washington. LSU and Baylor 44-31. LSU wins that game. Ohio
Okay.
State.
Okay. Well, we'll save the college football playoffs. We'll go through one of them. Chuck, maybe you want to just give us, just lead us through. Let's talk about each game for a minute. But Chuck, why don't you lead us through Notre Dame's win over Penn State on Thursday night?
Oh yeah, it was definitely one for the ages.
Well, I'd be remembered a field goal, 41-yard field goal was the difference.
Yeah, field goal.
Riley Leonard, 15-23, 223 yards passing.
Absolutely.
Touchdown, but 2 interceptions. And
he gave a phenomenal performance, I thought.
And he got hurt at one point in the game, and Steve Angeli went in and got with 6 of 7 for 44 yards. And Jeremiah Love was held to 45 yards rushing, but he had a touchdown. Leonard had a touchdown rushing. Looking at Penn State, Drew Aller, 12 of 23 and a touchdown. And Nicholas Singleton rushed for 84 yards, had 3 touchdowns. A great game to watch. And it came down to the final play, and Notre Dame, Penn State went out to a 10-0 lead. Then Notre Dame came back and took a 17-10 lead in the fourth quarter. Touchdowns for Penn State, they take a 24-17 lead. And then Notre Dame gets a touchdown. From Riley, Leonard to Greathouse, ties it, and then they get the ball back, and they get a 41-yard field goal. Carl, what was your thought on Notre Dame's win to advance to the national championship?
Great game. Probably one of that and the Texas ASU game were 2 of the best games that I've watched the entire bowl season. They were extremely entertaining and highly competitive. The Notre Dame Penn State game was one of those ones where you kind of hated for one of the teams to lose. I was rooting for Notre Dame, but I also like Penn State. And it was, you felt for Penn State's quarterback in the end, because he had played a very good game, and then he made a bad decision with less than a minute to go. And after Notre Dame had managed to tie back the game, and he threw across the field very much the way Bryson Daly had done against Navy. He just made one of those plays where he was running left and decided at the last minute to throw it back across the field to the right. And it's a no-no, because you literally are just throwing the ball up for grabs. And lo and behold, Notre Dame intercepted the pass and was able to drive into field goal range. And their grad student place kicker nailed the 41-yarder at the buzzer to give Notre Dame the victory and advance them to the college football playoff championship game. So
Okay.
hats off to the Irish.
Okay, we'll talk about them more to get closer to that. And Chuck, why don't you lead us through Ohio State's win 28-14 over Texas last night?
Oh yeah, that was another solid victory. Thought there was some great plays, solid teamwork. They really did a great job, and I was very impressed.
Well, I was driving back from a basketball game. I was listening to this on the radio, the fourth quarter,
Yeah,
and Ohio State is Texas got Ohio State on their heels. They're marching down the field. They get the ball back with about 7 minutes to go, and they're crunching the ball down the field. Barely, seldom going to third down, and then they get first down and goal at the Ohio State University 2-yard line. And they get
right.
Ohio State stops the play with a pass interference. So they have first and goal at the 1. And I'm thinking, I wish, this is Jacoby Buchanan's, time. And, and somehow or other, Ohio State couldn't get the ball into the end zone.
Texas.
Despite first and goal at
Texas.
the Ohio State 1 yard. They first and goal, they got no gain. Then they passed it. They did another run. They lost 7 yards. That's the killer. They went outside and they lost 7 yards instead of just pounding the ball up the middle.
Mm.
And then third and goal at the 8, they have pass incomplete. And then fourth and goal, the disaster play of all time that they'll remember for decades. That the quarterback is sacked by Jack Sawyer, picks up the ball, and runs 9 yards and
92 yards.
he ran 92 yards. Yeah, I guess it was a loss of 9, and then the fumble, and then he ran 83 yards for a touchdown. Broke the back of Texas. What were you thinking, Colonel? I just can't believe they couldn't convert that touchdown when they had first and goal at the 1.
I was watching the game. I watched the whole game, and first off, the game was a lot more competitive than I expected it to be. It really was an extremely entertaining game to watch because it was back and forth. It looked early on like Ohio State was going to just walk all over Texas, but Texas defense in the first half especially made some adjustments and just put the clamp down on Ohio State until Texas tied it up late in the first half. But then on the very next play, offensive play for Ohio State, they took advantage of a Texas blitz and did a running back screen that went 90 yards for a touchdown. And now at halftime it's 14-7. So now you're thinking Ohio State's going to just blow out Texas, but that's not what happened. Texas battled back into the game, tied it back up. Then in the fourth quarter, with about 5 minutes or so left in the fourth quarter, Ohio State scored a touchdown and took a 7-point lead. And then came the drive that you're talking about. Texas literally looked like they could do no wrong and got all the way down to as you said, the 2-yard line. And then on first and goal, they got a pass interference call in the end zone that put it first and goal on the 1. And this is to tie the game up late. You're sitting there, if you're sitting there in the stands watching, of course, you're thinking we might be seeing overtime here in this game. That would be awesome. But then the play calling got cute. Like, why in the world did you not just battering ram it up? Why did you just try a quarterback sneak? Do something. Run a quick hit between the tackles. Do something. But not the play calling that they did. They got cute, and as a result, the team that scored a touchdown was not Texas; it was Ohio State, because Texas put themselves in a position where they were not going to be able to get the ball in the end zone, and it was just a terrible unfolding sequence of events that just turned what was going to be a tie game into a blowout. Because when Texas got the ball back on the ensuing kickoff, Evers threw a interception, game over. But the sequence on the goal line reminded me of another game to relate it to Army football. and that is in 2018, Army got the ball on the Oklahoma 1 yard or on their own 1 yard line after stopping Oklahoma on a goal line stand and proceeded to drive all the way down to the Oklahoma 30-yard line, first and goal. I'm sorry, first and 10. And they had driven the entire length of the field that way, running between the tackles and absolutely smash mouthing Oklahoma down the field. And then with first and 10 on the Oklahoma 30, with about 4 minutes to go in the game, and the ability to run the clock down and kick a game-winning field goal or score a game-winning touchdown, instead of continuing to smash Oklahoma between the tackles, they got cute and ran a few cute
Sam, I was
plays.
standing behind the end zone for that play.
And
the Oklahoma fans were making the sound they usually only make for a Texas game.
Yeah, it just made no sense that the sudden play calling change, and the end result is that Hopkins threw an interception. And
yeah, but he had his arm hit, or the ball was deflected, and
it was very similar. I mean, Ewers rolling out, gets sacked, strip sacked. Ohio State runs it back for a touchdown. So, in the Oklahoma game that I'm referenced to, Hopkins got put into a 3rd and long situation, and and had to go into a very low percentage type play approach, and the end result was a disaster. That Army ended up with no points. Of course, the game did go into overtime that year because Oklahoma missed a field goal,
but then
at the end of the regulation.
But we all wish, what if Brett Davis, the coordinator at that time, had just run a run to set up a field goal attempt and at least got a chance to go ahead in that game. And, it didn't happen. They tried, as what coach will say sometimes, they tried to win the game. They saw something that might be open and they went for it, and it didn't work.
Didn't work. But Texas tried something. They literally imploded with first and goal on the 1 yard line. And the game on the line, they imploded. They literally
even on radio, I was listening to the Texas broadcast, and the announcer is saying they put in the big guys for the first down. They put in 2 blocking backs, is what they said. I'm sure they got big offensive line to begin with, and that they couldn't power a touchdown, with a quarterback sneak or what have you. It was astounding to me. Now, they didn't have confidence in themselves to be able to do that. So anyway, I think we're run late on time. I wanted to touch on one other point in that athletic director Mike Buddy, who I saw down in the Independence Bowl, had a Coke with him actually night before the game. Very gracious guy. Raised a lot of money at West Point, enabling the East Stands project to move ahead. This announced that he's moving to be AD at TCU in Fort Worth, and we wish him the best. Did a lot for West Point in his tenure. Now he's going to be at a Power 4 school. What are your thoughts, Colonel?
Yeah, well, Mike Buddy, he's a great guy. He's been an outstanding athletic director for Army. He's done a lot to advance the communications with alumni, and he's really moved the ball forward significantly with regards to making a case for donations from the alumni, and the East Stands project will always be a legacy to the work that he did while he was athletic director. He was a friend of mine. I got to know him in the past few years, and I saw him the day of the game at the tailgate and talked to him. And you're right, a very, very gracious, very straightforward kind of guy, very easy to talk to. He is moving on because of the job that he's done at West Point. So we wish him the best. We hate to lose Mike, but we do wish him the best at TCU. And now, we were happy that Monken was able to stay another season, and that we escaped a coaching carousel. But now we've got to fill the vacancy and the big shoes that Mike Buddy has left to fill back at West Point. So the search is on for a new athletic
Yeah.
director. And the very first thing the new athletic director has got to do is pick up the ball of discussions with Monken about his contract and extending Monken's contract and creating even more incentive for him to remain in place. So we'll see what
Yeah.
happens, see
Yeah.
how it unfolds.
Well, anyway, let's go around the table on what was your best highlight of the season. Chuck, what was your highlight moment? You have a special moment as you helped us cover Army football this year?
Yeah, there were actually quite a few of them, like numerous ones that stood out in my mind. I think just the entire Army season, I would say, just to see them go undefeated and the press coverage it brought in and the attention, they played just like we haven't seen in years, dare I say. It was, just phenomenal, and I'm honored to be a part of it, and to see the coverage firsthand and watch as they built up their undefeated streak, more or less.
Absolutely. Thank you for your coverage and being part of our team and help. And Richard, what was your favorite moment covering Army football? You got to one game.
Yes, my
Atlantic.
favorite. Yeah, I enjoyed that. My favorite moment actually, it's actually in fact the entire season that Army put together this fantastic season. I think the best season I think since we started this huddle, and capping it off also with a great bowl victory over Louisiana Tech. I think the entire season overall, a plus all over.
Okay, and Colonel Sam Houston, what was your favorite moment of the year?
This has been probably the most entertaining season of Army football that I've experienced. There was really only one low moment of the season, and that was the fact that the only game where they just had a bad game was the game, and that was against Navy. I would say in a season that was filled with highlights, almost every single game had a highlight in it. And amazing plays and hustle and hitting on both sides of the ball. I don't know. I think probably the highlight was the fact that, or the highlight for me was being at West Point to watch in the bitter cold the AAC championship in their very first season in the AAC. And they took it to Tulane that night. They took they guaranteed that they had an undefeated season at Mikey Stadium and an undefeated season in the conference, and they brought home the hardware of the conference championship. And for anyone who wants to belittle Army's record this season based on strength of schedule, I like to point out that the American Athletic Conference won the Bowl Cup Series this year with the best record of any conference in bowl games this season. So, and many of those teams Army played and defeated during this course of the year.
Yeah, very strong season for the American Conference in the bowl games, and certainly both service academies winning led that success. I have to go back to the Florida Atlantic game standing out. It was so hot that day, and Richard was there. And
I was there.
And you were there. Okay. I mean, the day before I got down there and I was walking around the campus, it was too hot to walk around the campus. And they played that game in, I think it was 92 degrees, 12 noon. And Florida Atlantic did something cute to wear their white road jerseys on that day. And Army came out, said, okay, we'll show you. We'll wear our black jerseys, black pants, and black helmets.
It was 110 degrees on the field.
110 on the field. And I thought Army would be challenged by that, especially maybe in the second half, but they didn't let it bother them. They just played like we're the U.S. Army, weather doesn't bother us, and just ran the ball down Florida Atlantic's throats all day. And Bryson Daly said after it was the hottest conditions he'd ever played football in, but he didn't let it bother him. It was kind of the signature that Army was for real. this year and would be aggressive taking on anybody this season. And I thought it just set the tone. Of course, just for me, watching the players grow and develop. Bryson Daly just got another award as the National Quarterback of the Year, uh, and seeing the players grow. Terrell Robinson, his courage in going back out on the field despite the injuries he had had. Um, uh, after having such great seasons as a young player at West Point, going back after 2 serious injuries and getting out on the field and contributing. And then the offensive line doing so good. Brady Small up front and Connor Finucane coming back to play 5th year and having to get back into football shape after he had dropped weight to meet all the Army's physical training requirements and playing virtually almost every play all season at right tackle. And Lucas Scott, great job at the other side. And um, and then the defense just really coming of age and having a phenomenal year. And, Nate Woody, I think, really deserved a lot of credit for that. And, of course, Max DiDomenico and as a captain. So a lot of positives. And so we'll got one more college football game this year with the national championship game with Notre Dame and Ohio State. And we'll gather next week and talk a little bit about that one. But I want to thank you guys for your gathering every week during the season, and thank everybody for watching. And
Pleasure.
I guess there's a tendency to already start looking forward to spring practice, and which will happen in April. You're a real college football fan when you start looking forward to spring practice.
Yeah.
I'll tell you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's break and thank you, everybody. And again, we always want to recognize our friends at the Special Operations Warrior Foundation. They provide scholarships and mentoring to children and families who have lost someone in the special operations community and service to our country. And again, we're CaMMVetsMedia. We cover cadets, midshipmen, the military, and veterans proudly since 2008. Thanks for watching, and Happy New Year.